Welcome to the Better Together podcast, everybody. My name is Brian Thomas Brett.
My name is Mina Thomas Brett.
We are better together. That's so funny. I don't ever do my middle name unless
it's us.
Yeah, that's funny. Brian Thomas Brett sounds so official. Welcome to the podcast. We're so grateful that you're here. If you've been rocking with us for a little bit, welcome back. If you're just joining us,
welcome. For the first time.
And thank you so much. We appreciate everybody like donating and following us on the socials. We've had some fun times recently. We had our first TikTok go over 1 million views.
Yes.
We started having guests on the pod, and we had our first guest, Taylor Church. And one of the clips went to like 1.7 million, I think, on TikTok right now, which is great. We're so blessed and super grateful. And it's coming up on 1 million on Instagram as well. It should get there pretty quick, I bet. Taylor was great. We had a good time with Taylor.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, that was fun. That was our first guest, and if you're watching this now, you will have seen some other guests as well. We have more guests coming, but kind of like what we're trying to do is do one of us, then one with a guest, one of us, one with a guest. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, it won't always be that way, but that's the goal.
That's the goal for 2025.
The rest of 2025.
Yeah,
and moving forward.
Yeah. So, all right. Quick housekeeping, brettertogether.com/cruise. We're doing a cruise next August 2026. It's a family and friends cruise for everybody. Like, it's going to be fun. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be doing guided tours on land because we know exactly what's going on in the Caribbean.
The Caribbean. Canarby. That's how my niece
Canarby.
used to say it.
In the Canarby. It's a Caribbean cruise. I think we're taking off out of LA. Right? I can't remember. You go to the website, you find out.
Okay.
But it's gonna be great.
It's gonna be awesome.
Some music stuff, like a couple workshops we'll be doing with the crew, having meals together. It's gonna be really fun. So definitely sign up for that because that's gonna be really cool. Beyond that, I think it's time to jump in. I do want to say something, kind of like, part of the reason for continuing to just do us is like we get to catch up ourselves and our audience on like what we're learning. And I wanted to mention one thing before we jump into our main topic that's really been helping us. I think it's been helping me. You can tell me if it's been helping you because maybe it hasn't been. But one thing that we implemented very early on in dating and strengthened when we got married due to research we did with the Gottman Institute and the research they did that we just piggybacked on, is this concept every night as a couple we do what's called a stress reducing conversation, but a way to wrap up the day mentally and emotionally, and put the day in a container, say it's over and now we're done with the day and we're moving on with the night. And sometimes we do this at midnight, or sometimes it's earlier, it depends. But we always wrap up the day. And so for a long time, we would talk about like evidence of what we'd seen from God during the day. We would kind of reflect on any gratitude moments. And most recently, for about the last year, we've been doing 3 wins. 3 wins that we're looking forward, that we had today, and 3 wins we're looking forward to tomorrow. And that's been nice. And then we look at the calendar and make sure we're prepared for tomorrow. So it's like a 3 to 5 minute routine that really blesses our relationship. But recently I was kind of in a quiet place with the Lord and realizing that some things that I wanted, like who I've become isn't necessarily who I want to be. And I needed to make some changes in my focus. And that the 3 wins focus was really good, but we tended to talk about external things that happened during the day. And so he kind of inspired me to do what I'm calling the focusing question. That's not a new idea. People they have that. That's a concept people have. And so by changing the question we ask at the end of the day, I'm finding that it's helping throughout the day because I know I'm going to answer this question at night. And so the new question is not what were your 3 wins from the day and what are your 3 wins you're looking forward to tomorrow? Great question, but better for us anyway right now is the question, how did you grow in Christlike love today? So we've been answering that question, and it's been helpful for me.
Say that again.
How did you grow in Christ-like love today? So that's the question we've been. Did you have me ask it because I slurred it or something like that?
Because you were rubbing your eye.
Oh, okay.
And if we're gonna clip that, I don't want you rubbing your eye.
Look at the producer. She's good. She's the editor, man. I love it. Because I knew you knew what the question was, and I knew. Yeah, that was good. That was good.
So do it again.
All right. Yeah. So the question we're now asking ourselves at the end of the day is, how did you grow in Christ-like love today? That question has been helpful to me because I know if I'm going to answer that question at night, it's impacting how I'm behaving during the day. And at the end of the day, the entire apparatus, the gymnastics, the spiritual gymnastics of the day, the whole gym, the whole thing that the playground the Lord set up here is all about growing in Christ-like love. It's about growing in love and oneness with God and all that means. Like love, that is the metric. And so knowing that is the greatest of all, if we don't grow in Christ-like love every day, then what were we doing? Everything else is shallow. Everything else fails and fades away. So that's been helpful to me, and it's raised awareness in my mind throughout the day of certain things that I was kind of shoving under the rug, that I knew were issues, but I wasn't focused correctly. So it's been helpful to me. I like it. What has it done for you? Are you enjoying the question? Is it helpful?
I find the question actually very difficult to answer a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
But it also is challenging because there's a lot of things that happen in the day that I don't even really think about when it comes time to, have our stress reducing conversation at the end of the day. And then it's like, I really have to think about this. How did I grow in Christ-like love today?
Yeah.
Did I grow in Christ-like love today? Sometimes I just feel like I did not.
Yesterday I questioned it.
Right. Like most of the time I question it, but it really is a good introspective question, like a good gauge on like where you are with the Lord, and a good way to be honest internally without too much fanfare, without like a bunch of things in the way. It's just a very honest, very direct question, and I don't always know how to answer it.
Yeah.
But that in and of itself, I think, it encourages growth, because I know, like, the first week we've started asking this question, it's been really hard, but moving forward, I can see how it will encourage me even throughout the day to be paying attention to how I'm growing in Christ-like love, and to also be cognizant of the fact that I need to.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what it's doing for me as well. I'm really inspired by the concept from John Mark Comer's book, Practicing the Way, of practice, of training, not just trying or giving lip service to this idea of growing in Christ-like love and becoming an apprentice or a follower of Jesus, but practicing. It gives you permission to make mistakes, but it also says, I'm going to be training today. I'm going to the training ground. And for some reason, this is speaking to me in a different way in this season of my life. I kind of had the same mentality years ago, and it was the best time of my life, where I treated every second of the day as a moment for training, an opportunity to become more like Christ. And so I'm grateful to be returning to that with new language and new perspective on it. But this question that we ask at the end of the day is, I think it's a great focusing question. I think if everybody asks themselves that at the end of the day, I think that it has the effect of improving your daily activities, your daily actions. And like, hey, at the end of the day, like, how did my training go today? How did my practice go today? Cool. All right. Made some mistakes, but improved here. Let's do it again tomorrow. Like, this is all training, and it's It's exciting. So that is a great focusing question. If you want a follow-up question, you can ask the question, how did you become more like Jesus today? Which is a different question. It's not entirely love focused. It opens it up to you growing in other dimensions of Christ-like attributes, right? Like yesterday, I kind of struggled on the love question because I lost my patience with our son, and our niece. I was watching them, and I had a lot going on, and the power went out, and it was just a perfect storm. And I was like, wow. So I was feeling guilty and a little bit ashamed there. So I was able to find something where I grew in Christ-like love, but it was easier for me to answer the question how I became more like Christ, because I saw that I was becoming more like him in this area of being more honest and direct. And so I think that's a good follow-up question as well, that, love is number one, but then there are also all these other attributes. So if you want to add that second question, then you totally can. But we're finding the first question to be simple and very focusing. So anyway, just want to share that as a little tidbit here on the front end of the episode. What are you smiling at? Me?
Yeah.
Are you in love with me? Okay, let's talk about
Of course I am.
our main topic today. This podcast is all about bridge building in every area of life, relationships. Specifically, we're talking about relationships in faith, and we talk about bridge building in racial and ethnic and cultural ways, but also in spiritual ways. We're finding that bridge building is kind of applicable in every area of life. So this topic is another dimension of bridge building for us, that without this crucial skill of proper boundary setting, it becomes difficult to build bridges. It even becomes difficult to become more like Jesus. And it certainly becomes difficult to have healthy relationships and achieve what you're intended to achieve, to run your blueprint. So boundaries is important, and I'm excited to see where this conversation goes. I think we're going to talk about how it applies to relationships, how it applies to bridge building, how it applies to becoming more like Jesus, and also professionally walking out your blueprint in life. This is an area where I'll be vulnerable, and I think this episode might be for me today. And so I'm excited to see what the Lord teaches me through you and through him and through me. So let's start the conversation with this. All right. Are you ready for this? This is interesting. And I wasn't expecting to start the conversation here, but I just felt inspired. Okay. Let me
Do you want me to read the definition of boundaries?
Sure.
Or do you want me to just wait for your... I feel like you're really brewing with something over there, so I don't want to interrupt your flow, if that's what you got going.
Okay, now let's start here. This is, I think, a controversial post. I ran across this on Instagram from John W. Rush. His caption was, Jesus' primary message wasn't love. Modern Christians are love drunk, and that might be a problem. So here's what he has to say. He said, Jesus made 20 references to love, 120 references to the kingdom across all four gospels. Okay. Which is interesting. Okay. So Jesus' big ideas, number 1 were kingdom. Number 2 was love. Number 3 was repentance or sin. Number 4 was divine identity. Those are his big themes in the New Testament, apparently. So this is what this guy has to say about it. It says, love is not the goal. Establishing God's kingdom on earth is. In fact, Revelation ends where Genesis begins, Eden. Okay? It says, the dangers of prioritizing the love of God over the kingdom of heaven. We place human happiness over holiness. Jesus becomes a spiritual guide instead of our king. We commit the sin of Adam and Eve because they didn't reject God's love. They rebelled against his rule. When we teach people about love only, Christians come to think of themselves as merely people in a relationship instead of citizens of heaven. The kingdom binds us firmly to our call on earth as well as our allegiance to heaven. Love paired with kingdom citizenship is a culture-shaking, society-shaping force that cannot be replicated or resisted. To love is to desire the good for someone. The kingdom teaches us what God's love desires for us. Love without God's law is subject to human perversion. There are numerous glaring examples of love in human history and contemporary culture that are clearly detrimental to human flourishing. Most heresy begins with, would a loving God really do ... Would a loving God really ask you to do that? One of the roots of heresy is thinking that God exists primarily for our happiness. The kingdom of heaven reminds us we exist entirely for God's glory. Jesus didn't teach on love as much as he taught about the kingdom of heaven. If you come only to Jesus for love, you'll leave the moment his commands feel unloving. But if you come to Jesus as king and live under his kingdom, even the hardest commands make sense inside the context of his rule. You won't always feel them as loving, but you'll know they're good. You'll know they're holy. Because Jesus didn't come to make us feel better. He came to make us new. And that kind of transformation doesn't come through sentiment. It comes through surrender. The gospel isn't just about how deeply God loves you. It's about how good he is at telling us what to do. And until we submit to his kingdom, we'll never find our way back to Eden. Okay. I'm not co-signing on this. I just saw it. And I think it sets up a bit of juxtaposition here between love and boundaries.
Okay.
Okay.
So now I have a quote.
Okay.
So you said we're juxtaposing love and boundaries based on the quote that you just read.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
This one kind of marries the two, I think, but you can tell me what you think. This is a quote from Prentice Hemphill.
Come on, Prentice.
And it says, boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously.
Wait, say it again.
Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. So I think that kind of brings a lot of things to mind. Just because of the idea that, especially lately, like there's just been this conversation about healthy boundaries and why everybody needs healthy boundaries. You know, there's that book, Boundaries. And the guy who wrote that book actually wrote Boundaries in Relationships. He wrote like another one. And
Henry Cloud,
yeah.
Great book. We'll talk more about it.
But I think a lot of times when we either do not have boundaries or our boundaries are transgressed, that is when trauma happens. That is when relational trauma happens. When when our boundaries are not honored, whether they have been communicated or not. When that line is crossed, that boundary line is crossed, it results in some kind of pain or trauma or sin. Which, when we look at the like basic definition of sin, which is to miss the mark being to treat ourselves, God, and others with the respect that an image bearer deserves. The failure to do that is missing the mark. And that is sin. So that's the basic definition of sin. Then if we don't treat ourselves and others and God like as king, with the respect that an image bearer deserves, God being the chief and original image bearer, then we stumble into sin. If we don't treat the kingdom with the respect it deserves. A kingdom in and of itself, it's the king's dominion. It's the boundaries that the king has set up
Right.
for his dominion, for his rule, for the territory that he occupies. So to look at boundaries from that perspective and to look at transgressing those boundaries as really sinning against each other, then we can say that setting up a boundary is a way for us to abide by the great commandment that Jesus gave, right? When he was questioned by the Pharisees. It's Matthew 22, verses 37 through 40. Jesus said unto him, you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and great commandment. This is the first set of boundaries. And the second is like it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. On these two sets of boundaries is what all the other boundaries are based on. Like you can categorize all of them under those two commandments.
Yeah. Well,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm thinking that this conversation is not going to take the shape that I thought it might. But yeah, that quote that you read is very thought-provoking in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So what do you think from that quote applies here? Because what I'm getting from it is like the basic idea is that love without boundaries can actually become harmful.
Wow, love without boundaries is not love.
Ah.
I don't think.
Okay.
Especially
Explain.
when we look at the definition of love from the biblical standpoint, it's full of boundaries, right? So
Yeah. What's the difference between love and toleration, in your opinion?
I think when we tolerate certain things, we don't necessarily have to agree with them. We don't have to co-sign. We don't have to go along with them. We just are like aware that someone has a difference of opinion to us. And that's not necessarily, I feel like the difference between love and toleration is the same as the difference between compromise and cooperation. Or what's the other word that you used?
There's
Compromise and collaboration.
Collaboration is a higher...
Collaboration, that's the word.
Yeah.
So I feel like the difference between love and toleration is the same as the difference between collaboration and the other word that just flew out of my head.
Compromise.
Compromise.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like we could tolerate each other. That's fine. Like somebody can have different beliefs as you, somebody can have, and that's fine. And you don't have to argue with them or anything like that. There can be tolerance, you know. But to love someone is to welcome them to the feast instead of, you know, maybe donating food so that they can eat.
Okay. Interesting.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. And there definitely has to be some tolerance in love, I'm sure.
Right.
You know, because there's no way we're going to agree on everything.
Right.
But
so I think just the feeling you get, especially in modern American Christianity and just our culture in general, not even just Christianity, but in America, Western society, is love always says yes. You know what I mean? Love tolerates everything. Love, if it's not loving to say no, to
Mm.
block something or something that's harmful off, um, and so it's in a lot of ways it's like the difference between being nice and kind,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and so I'm just really intrigued by this quote in a way because it's setting up this juxtaposition of kingdom and love, that kingdom supersedes love, which I don't know entirely I agree with everything that he said, but it's thought provoking. And so let's bring this down to relationships. First of all, um, what do why do we need boundaries in relationships? Why do we need boundaries in life in general? Like, aren't we just limitless beings full of love, and we should just be able to flow in love for everybody and do everything? I mean, why do we need boundaries, and how do they help us?
Well, I don't know. That quote is just really, really helping me. Boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously.
But
Because I
isn't
can,
God like we're after his love, right? And he loves everybody without limit, right? So isn't that like a lesser form of love to put boundaries on it? Like, hey, this is the distance at which you can love me and I can love you. Well, I'm just being,
well, no,
devil's
I
advocate.
know you mean devil's advocate. Let's read the biblical definition of love. These are the parameters given for love. 1 Corinthians 13, verses 4 through, let's say, through 8. Um, and in the KJV, it replaces love with charity, um, to emphasize the giving aspect of love.
Mm-hmm.
Probably because one of the main words for love in Hebrew means to give.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that might be why they decided to use charity to emphasize the giving aspect of love. Um, I love agape because it also, among, love, affection, benevolence, those words, it also means a love feast,
Mm-hmm.
which, the idea of a feast, the word picture of a feast, it really gives you like potluck type of
Mm-hmm.
vibes,
Yeah.
like more than you can eat, more than you can, just an overabundance of love.
Yeah.
It's definitely a picture of abundance when it comes to like that imagery. So anyway, in KJV it says charity or love suffereth long and is kind. Charity envieth not. Charity vaunteth not itself. That means that it doesn't boast. It's not a braggart. Is not puffed up. So not proud. Does not behave itself unseemly. Seeketh not her own. Is not easily provoked. Thinketh no evil. Rejoiceth not in iniquity, but rejoiceth in the truth. Beareth all things, believeth all things, hopeth all things, endureth all things. Charity never fails, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. Um, and that's just the beginning part of verse 8 that we can focus on. Charity never fails. Love never fails. Okay. So when we look at this biblical definition of love, right, there's a whole list of things that it is not, which to me sounds a whole lot like boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
right? It says what it is. Charity suffers long. It is patient. It is kind. But one thing it's not going to do is envy. One thing it's not going to do is boast. One thing is not going to be is puffed up. It doesn't behave itself unseemly. It's not going to seek its own. It's not easily provoked. It's not going to be thinking evil of others, right? It doesn't rejoice in iniquity, in crookedness, but it rejoices in the truth. That's something it does do, right? It bears all things, it believes all things, it hopes all things, endures all things, and it doesn't fail. That's another boundary. These are things that love can and cannot do. And if you love someone, then these boundaries will be in place, or you will at least work for those boundaries to be in place.
Yeah.
If you want to love someone the way God loves, then you will have boundaries. And the boundaries will go according to what God says love is. And in this case, I think it's a pretty balanced list.
Interesting. Okay.
So I'm just saying, like, the way that the world defines love is their business. But the way God defines love is how we in the church and among his followers should define love and practice love.
Yeah.
Because just because the world says, take me as I am, and I get to step all over you because you love me, and you don't get to say no, and you get to be a doormat because we've decided to use the word love, that doesn't mean that that's what love is.
Yeah.
And we should not be preoccupied with the way that they define love and the way that they practice love, because we are the ones who are supposed to set that standard, not the world, especially within the church. We are not to be allowing them to define what the scriptures so clearly define. I could see if there was, like, gray area, if there's like, I don't know, the Bible says this, but it also says this, but it's very clearly delineated what love is and what it is not. And what it is not is where we find the boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, that's good. So love inherently has boundaries.
Inherently. And that's why I like that quote, because it's like the distance at which I can love you and me at the same time. Because if we are to treat every image bearer with the respect that an image bearer deserves, including ourselves, then we cannot skip having boundaries.
Yeah.
Because if I love you with the respect that an image bearer deserves and I neglect myself, I'm in sin.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I love you with the respect that I treat you with the respect that an image bearer deserves, and I treat me with the respect that an image bearer deserves, but I neglect God, I'm in sin. So this is a way for us, this scripture, the way it's delineated in scripture, is a way for us to balance all of these image bearers in a way that everyone receives love the way they are meant to.
Yeah.
On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. Why? Because if you do this well, if you honor God, if you honor yourself, if you honor your neighbor, all boundaries are set up correctly, and we've got a wonderful flow going on.
Yeah.
That means that love flows to us from God, through us to others.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And the thought I'm having here is, I think the discontent that I experience and even confusion that I experience, I think is pretty rampant in the world amongst people who don't believe in Jesus, and then within the church amongst people who do, is the admixture of philosophies of men mingled with scripture and imposing man-made frameworks onto scripture. And then we build our mental models and our behavioral models off of that. And I think it's important the order that we do that in, it's so valuable if if you hear this amazing quote from Brene Brown or somebody else, and if it rings so true, that's awesome. So bring that. I'm always all about squaring everything in Scripture, and there is a hierarchy for me. It's like what God has said first, then find support for it from Christian thinkers, from other religious thinkers, from just great thinkers, um, and and that's the order, right? Sometimes I'll hear something really great, and I'll go to find scriptural support for it, but it's more powerful for me to create my frameworks, my models based on God's truth in the center, and then to find support for that outwardly, and then build the models off of that. And so I'm thinking like what we've done with the relationship circles. That was a model that we got from I was a Christian therapist. So I don't know where they got it from, but then we kind of let it sit there, and it helped us for a time in a season. Then we let it sit there. And then when we came back to it, we realized, oh, this is really powerful, but it needs these adjustments to align with Matthew 22. And I'm not interested in building my life on anything other than God's truth. And so that seems fundamental. Love God, love yourself, love neighbor. That is scripture. So I can take that to the bank. And so I'm going to build my model off of that. And so I think there are a lot of great ideas out there, but I think we do need to be careful as believers what we allow to develop our mental models and our behavioral models, because sometimes we'll take a framework and make that our whole heart set, our whole mindset, and actually it might be off a few degrees, So I think that's important. But the boundaries idea is something that Jesus modeled himself. And so let's talk about it in terms. I said we're going to go with relationships, but let's actually go with relationships. But first, the relationship with God. How do boundaries apply in the relationship with God? I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that.
Oh, well, what comes to mind is the idea that righteousness is healthy boundaries on display. So the thing that is required to be in relationship with God, probably more than anything else, is righteousness. And what's amazing about the atonement of Christ is that he lends us his righteousness so that we are not to be occupied, or we don't have to be occupied with achieving it on our own, because it is impossible without some heavenly intervention.
Right.
Righteousness is like living righteously, I feel, is a display of healthy boundaries. Because in order to approach God, there are requirements. People can say, come as you are, until they're blue in the face. But one thing about God is he's not going to let you stay as you are. Because he loves you too much. Because what you are now is what you have become, not who you really are. Righteousness is getting you back to who you really are. And who you really are has boundaries. Who you really are has healthy boundaries. What you really are has boundaries, healthy boundaries. Our cells have cell walls, right? So boundaries are written into creation.
Yeah.
They're scripted into it. There's not really anything that we can do to eradicate them. And anytime we try, what we end up with is chaos. The story of Genesis, the story of the creation, is about boundaries, where the Lord takes chaos and he organizes it. Where he takes nothingness. It's not even nothingness. It is, in Hebrew, it's it's tohu vavohu, and it's like the chaos waters. And from the chaos waters rise the land mass of earth, of land.
Yeah.
That we are in turn made out of later on in the creation story. That's a boundary. Like, if you go to the beach, you see that the tide only goes so far, even when it rises.
Mm-hmm.
There's this song by Nicole C. Mullen that just came to my head. Who taught the sun where to stand in the morning? And who told the ocean you can only come this far? It's like, that's a boundary. You
Mm-hmm.
come this far and no further.
Mm-hmm.
The sun rules the day. The moon rules the night. The stars come out at night. Those are boundaries.
Yeah.
The entire creation story is about the boundaries that the Lord created in such a way, in such a healthy way, that everything has a flow to it, that everything has its place. Every time everything occupies its place the way it's supposed to, things happen righteously in the
Mm-hmm.
universe and the world and in his creation. When we eradicate boundaries, we get viruses. We get malware downloaded into our
Mm-hmm.
hardware and into our software. And when we do this, when we experience this, this is dis-ease. This is unrighteousness. This is crookedness. This is sin. This is what brings in the unrighteousness,
Mm-hmm.
the lack of balance,
Yeah.
the lack of boundaries,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
Even Jesus as the Prince of Peace. Like, peace is a boundary. When he stood on that water and said, "Peace, be still," he was establishing a boundary. This far, no further. And really what ends up happening is, I think we understand on a primal level as humans, we understand the necessity for boundaries
Mm-hmm.
to a fault. And we engage in trying to protect ourselves.
Right.
Because often we have our boundaries trespassed on when we're too young or too unaware
Mm-hmm.
to establish those boundaries ourselves, or to even know what they are or what they should be.
Yeah.
And the enemy is so good at trespassing when we don't know that he's trespassing.
Yeah.
So that later on, we think he actually has the right to be there because he trespassed so early. That
Right.
it's like, well, he belongs here because he's always been here, because I
Right.
can't remember a time when he wasn't. No, he just trespassed early.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
He just trespassed when it was like construction and not a full building yet.
Right.
So it's like, was it wrong because there was no real fence established? Nah. It's what happened in the garden,
Right.
right? There was no visible fence.
Yeah.
So he was just tramping all over the place when he shouldn't have been. So it's just like,
Yeah.
I think when I think about boundaries, I think about righteousness,
Mm-hmm.
because righteousness is everything as it should be. And if that's true, then we're talking about creation vibes. And if we're talking about creation, then that ain't nothing but boundaries.
Right. Right. Yeah. So takeaways for us, we have to make this shift and understand the boundaries are good. Boundaries are innate, and boundaries are a reality that exists whether we choose to believe in it or not.
Yes. Like, that's what I was saying. Like, we engage in trying to protect ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We try to establish boundaries, but I think once you've been traumatized, the establishment of boundaries is usually overkill.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I always talk about the analogy that the Lord gave me from my heart, and how I've got like the walls, I call the walls of Jericho, because
Yeah.
they're ancient. They look old. They look well established. There's, guards up there with crossbows. There's a moat with alligators. There's a drawbridge. If you get past that, there's a chain link fence with barbed wire and all the latest technology, eye scans, voice scans, fingerprints, rabid attack dogs.
Wow.
And those are the boundaries that I have thrown up to protect myself. And in an effort to protect myself, I have imprisoned myself and locked God on the outside of these protective measures.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us do that, so much so that there's scripture for it. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. Why does he have to knock?
Mm-hmm.
Because we have walls.
Yeah.
Because we engage in protecting ourselves.
Yeah.
Instead of letting him do it. So I want to stress healthy boundaries in this conversation, because one of the things that the Lord told me about healthy boundaries when it comes to a garden is that he told me that my heart is a garden. And he's like, if your heart is a garden, you don't need Jericho walls for a garden. Who's going to see the garden behind that?
Yeah.
What you've got is the secret garden, and I'm trying to make it the sacred garden. And when he told me about boundaries, about the difference between toxic boundaries and healthy boundaries, is that you've got the wall of Jericho, and I just want you to have a white picket fence. He said a white picket fence is a boundary too. It communicates the same thing, this far and no further. But it also allows people to admire in you what I am doing, the development that I am doing. People will get to see the fruit of what I am doing, the flowers of what I am doing. People will see what I am doing in your heart and benefit from it and feed from it and learn from it and glean from it. And they can't do that if you got the walls of Jericho. If you've got a white picket fence, it still communicates the boundary. It still makes it very clear. Don't step on my petunias.
Don't step on my petunias.
But you can look at them. Ain't they pretty?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think too often we engage in toxic boundaries and then wonder why we cannot engage in loving relationships.
Yeah. So I asked the question about boundaries, with God. And so I think this is great. I'm thinking, and maybe challenge me on this. I'm always, language, you're always about language, and language matters. And I'm not saying this is going to be some kind of movement. And I'm sure somebody else already thought about this, but I think there's healthy boundaries can mean something different to other people. Even the word righteous boundaries can mean something different. But I think we're establishing that boundaries are good. Boundaries are from God. And so maybe Christlike boundaries is a term we could use that would help us to center the way we set our boundaries, because it's a certain type of boundary we're talking about. And really, when we talk about our relationship with God, everything you said is true about the boundaries of creation and everything. And it's because he has a certain purpose for creation. And he has a certain system that he's put in place that if you desire the outcome of becoming a manifested son or daughter of God, attaining unto the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ, here's the system. This is the way I've set it up. And you can follow it or not, but this is how it goes. And it's tough. This is where that kingdom and love conversation comes in, right? God has set up a kingdom way of doing things that is so love-based. Everything about the kingdom is love-based. But you have a choice whether or not you're going to follow those boundaries that he set. And it's not out of hate or anything else. If you don't follow those boundaries, there will, however, be consequences that come into your life because you haven't followed the established system, the natural order of how he created things. And so it's just, I think, coming to grips with that reality. So as you approach your relationship with God, I think it's just, we need to learn the truths that govern how we set up this creation. And what's interesting about truth, I believe personally that as we, go into eternity, that that there are certain things that we understand now that will be like, oh, okay, that's actually all right. I think there are higher ways, like spheres of truth that we'll learn. And so in some ways, I think our weird relationship with boundaries is in some ways trying to skip levels.
Okay, talk about that.
Like, we're trying to get to an area of truth and love that God exists in that we have not yet become capable of existing in. And he set up a system for us that we need to follow that has kind of like it's like the law of Moses into the higher law.
Yeah.
But I feel like we are still learning what the higher law really is. And so I think we are progressing, and we are not yet to that level with God. And
Right.
so
It's that who shall ascend into the hill of the Lord? He that has clean hands and a pure heart and has not lifted up his soul unto vanity. Who has access to God? These are the parameters. If you don't have clean hands, you can't ascend into the hill of the Lord. If you don't have a pure heart, you can't ascend into the hill of the Lord. If you have lifted up your soul unto vanity, you cannot ascend into the hill of the Lord. Those are boundaries. The boundaries are usually, especially when it comes to God and his interactions with us and our interactions with heaven, boundaries are set in place to protect us. Not to keep us out of heaven or to keep us away from God.
Right.
Because uncleanness, unclean hands automatically sets us up to be destroyed. Not because he wants to destroy us, but because it cannot exist. It cannot survive in his presence.
Sure.
That's how pure and how holy and how righteous his presence is.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like we're exposed to small increments over time, progression of his presence, so that we can become clean, so that we can go back to become righteous.
Yeah.
And righteousness is humanity and creation the way God intended it.
Yeah. That's what righteousness is. Yeah.
That's all righteousness is. It's what God designed. Now, the design got messed up for what, all this, the sin and all the things, because we decided to miss the mark.
Yeah.
Because we did not treat God and ourselves. The first people we sinned against was us.
Yeah.
Ourselves.
Yeah.
We did not treat God and ourselves with the respect that an image bearer deserves. And because of that, we fell.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when we think of it that way, it's like all of these parameters, these guidelines are in place to protect us. Because if we were to get our hands on the technology of heaven without the heart that is necessary to wield it, we would destroy first ourselves and the world around us.
Right.
And that is not God's design.
Right. No,
So
I agree. I agree with that. I think, so I do think sometimes we try to skip levels,
yes, I agree.
and that's, and
It's very Tower of Babel.
Yeah, it's very Tower of Babel. But here's the interesting dichotomy, because when you quoted Psalm 24, there, and I hear that, I am still, from my perspective, where I've been in my life, kind of legalistic in ways. I'm still struggling with some of that and the shame and guilt culture, that says, okay, so what you just said, I'm not worthy, right?
Now, that's the cool thing about Jesus, though.
Okay.
Because, and it's like I think it was Ezekiel, where he has that vision of the coal. Is Ezekiel?
No,
is it
coal?
Isaiah?
That's Isaiah. Yeah,
That's Isaiah.
With the tongues.
The coal coming out of the presence of God and coming to touch him.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about Jesus, is that because of him, we have access to God because he came to us instead of us having to go to him.
Yeah.
Now, there's still parameters to come to Jesus.
Right.
But there's just something so beautiful about the fact that he wanted to come to us, that I mean, even in the Old Testament, he's always reaching for us, always making ways. I mean, you got the Ark of the Covenant behind you.
Right.
Right. That was his way of coming to us when we rejected him. When the children of Israel rejected him on the mountain, and they said, "No, we just want Moses. We really could do without hanging out with you." Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
You just tell Moses what to do, and we'll do what he says. They chose that
Right.
instead of
Right.
him.
Right.
And he said, I made a promise. I made a promise that I would dwell with you. And that's what I'm going to do. So he limited himself in the tabernacle so that we could approach him.
Yeah.
And it's hard to see it that way, but the tabernacle is a type of Christ if we've ever seen one.
Sure.
Like, the tent is covered in 3 layers of skin, just like a human being. The middle layer is red, just like a human being. Like, it's ridiculous how much imagery is in there to show us, like, I'm on my way.
Yeah.
This will stand in for it. But I want you to know that it's always been my intention to come to you, because you can't come to me. Who has clean hands?
All right.
Who has a pure heart? Who hasn't
Jesus.
lifted himself up to vanity?
Jesus.
That's about Jesus.
Yeah.
He's the only one that can ascend the hill.
Mm.
And how did he ascend the hill? Carrying a cross. So, like, it's always been his intention to come to us because we can't go to him.
Mm-hmm.
Those boundaries were in place to protect us.
Yeah. Yes, I would say yes. It's always been his intention to come to us because we can't come to him, but he wants us to become like him. That's why he did the whole thing, right? So he's only ever met people where they're at. So again, like, he is willing absolutely to meet us where we're at, but then in the relationship that you have with him, he's going to say, this is the way. Yeah. Follow me.
Follow me, yeah.
Follow me so that you can do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
You think the way I think, feel the way I feel,
yeah,
act the way that I act in the world and ultimately in heaven. And even like to his disciples, you'll rule with me, you know, you'll rule over the 12 tribes of Israel, you know, like he's offering what's on offer in the kingdom is crazy.
I know.
It's really cool.
The benefits package is top tier.
But we do have to, I'm speaking for myself and many others I know, we have to overcome the shame and guilt culture. And so I have a few things on that. And so here's where I'm coming to. And I think this is the name of the episode. It's Christlike boundaries. Because I think other words for it don't quite capture it, because I think boundaries in general is a great idea, but I think it's also misused by a lot of people who've only ever heard heard it in pop culture because the book did so well. It's a New York Times bestseller, and now boundaries are so important, so they get it off an Instagram reel or a TikTok, and they say, oh, now I know about boundaries, so I've got to set boundaries, and they do it in a way that's not actually Christ-like. And so that actually is not healthy nor righteous and can lead to toxicity. And so I think our goal as in everything needs to be, what is the Christ-like way of setting boundaries, and grow in that. You're going to make mistakes, but grow in that. And yes, go learn from all the top experts on boundaries. And that's great, do that, but always bring it back to what is the Christ-like boundary. And so I think with a Christ-like boundary, just like you mentioned in 1 Corinthians 13, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. There's always this beautiful middle of the way to do it. And so even in what we're saying about clean hands, pure heart, I'm going to quote this again. I quoted it in our episode with Isabel, that grace is not opposed to effort. It is opposed to earning, right? So Jesus did set up new boundaries with his atonement and what he did for us with his grace. But there are new boundaries. There are boundaries. They're just new boundaries. And
I wouldn't even say they're new. I think they're just condensed.
I would even say that, yeah, condensed. I would say like a collapsible menu.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because all 613?
613, 614, including the Messiah.
Including the Messiah.
Which is the
we all collapse under the 2 great commandments, or the 3 great commandments, whatever you want to say. So I think the Christ-like boundary thing, and not trying to earn. So that's where I'm at. And I don't think I've read this on the podcast yet, but it's been so powerful for me because I know that in this area and so many others, I'm operating from a flawed mindset, a mindset that tells me that I'm not good enough, that I have shame and guilt, I'm not worthy, I need to earn, I need to strive, I need to keep on trying, I need to do certain things so that I can have certain things so I can become something. I'm always striving, performance-based type of stuff. And and that is the temptation when we think about boundaries with God, is that these commandments and these boundaries He set up are this list of things I have to do perfectly in order for me to obtain relationship with Him or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, what He set up is a very different system, but it's upside down and inside out to our flesh and our worldly thinking. So I want to read this list, and just see where this leads the conversation. And ultimately, I want to get to some really great. I've got great quotes on boundaries and relationships. I got great quotes that I think are really cool. But without this context of Christ-like boundaries, if we don't understand this foundation we've laid, then I think we're going to struggle in this area. We might get it 80% right, but that 20% we're missing will grow because our foundation is cracked. I think the Christ-like boundaries idea for me, that's bringing it all into a focus that I think our listeners could take with them and say, okay, in my daily life, how do I exercise Christ-like boundaries? How do I learn from Him personally and through Scripture and his model how to exercise boundaries? How do I take this great information I just learned on TikTok or in this book and come back to, okay, is that a Christ-like boundary that I'm being taught there, or is it actually a flawed mentality? What Leif Hetland would call a chair two mentality. So I want to get to this list here. I'm sorry for going off a little bit, but I just want to grow in Christ-like love. I want to become like Jesus. For me, I am just all of the questioning, all of the doubts, all of my journey has led me to the simplicity in Christ. It's led me to realizing that He is the greatest master teacher ever, let alone my Savior, Redeemer, and Healer. He is the greatest teacher. His teachings are so full. And I could go all throughout the world, look up all the teachers. I could look up everybody, every system, every theology, every philosophy. And nobody and nothing else measures up to what Jesus taught. It's so beautiful, so packed, but so simple. And so that's where I'm at. And I think in our podcast, I mean, we have the liberty to do that. We're about building bridges between all different belief systems and everything. But ultimately, for me personally, I'm like, oh, Jesus, he's the way. He's who I'm hooking my wagon to, So with that, Leif Hetland, this book, I've recommended it before. I'm now listening to it. I've read it twice, listening to it, trying to implement. It's called to Reign, the idea of reigning from the throne of God, being seated with Jesus in heavenly places and operating from that place, operating from love and from a place of having a home in God rather than a place of fear and being an orphan, having a house but not a home. And so he delineates between three chairs. The first chair is for chair three believers, he calls them, are actually people who don't believe in Jesus, who are kind of building the kingdom of the world, if you will, to put it in Christianese. Chair two are believers who have come to Christ, but really at the end of the day, they're operating from fear. They have not found a home in that identity with Him, and they're actually building the kingdom of self. Chair one is those believers who have found their identity. They then let intimacy flow from that identity, then let inheritance flow from that intimacy, and then let destiny flow from that inheritance. That's a chair three believer. And he estimates that over 90% of Christianity, the believers in the world, are chair two. And sometimes they dip into chair one, and those are the beautiful moments. Those are the podcast clips that work when they're teaching from chair one. But chair two is actually kingdom of the self, and it hasn't produced the results in the world that it's supposed to, because it's not a superior way of thinking.
Mm.
In a lot of ways, it's kind of the same level as being part of the kingdom of the world, in a way. So he juxtaposes chair 1 and chair 2, and I think it's really valuable. So this list is mind-blowing to me, and I think it'll really challenge you. Chair 1, believer. Chair 2, believer. Chair 1, kingdom of God. Chair 2, kingdom of self. Chair 1, love-based. Chair 2, fear-based. Chair 1, rooted in the spirit of sonship. Chair 2, rooted in orphan spirit. Chair 1 experiences the dove's habitation. Chair 2 experiences the dove's visitation.
Mm.
Chair 1, be, have, do. Chair 2, do, have, be. Chair 1 prioritizes identity and intimacy over inheritance and destiny. Chair 2 prioritizes inheritance and destiny over identity and intimacy. Chair 1 wants to bring heaven to earth. Chair 2 wants to get from earth to heaven.
Mm.
Chair 1 lives from God. Chair 2 lives for God. Chair 1, the believer's touch cleanses the world. Chair 2, the world's touch corrupts the believer.
Mm.
Chair 1 sets the temperature like a thermostat. Chair 2 measures the temperature like a thermometer. Chair 1 treats people according to their destiny. Chair 2 treats people according to their history. Chair 1 influences the world. Chair 2 influenced by the world. Chair 1 confident in hearing God's voice. Chair 2 afraid of being misled. Chair 1 God's pleasure without performing. Chair 2 pressure to perform. And chair 1 at rest. Chair 2 restless. That has really blessed me a lot. And why do I share that in context of these boundaries? It's saying, to bring that all together, that God does have boundaries. He does have commandments. He does have a system that we need to follow. But many times we are imposing our chair 2 perspective, our chair 2 lens over what is actually his love-based system. We impose our fear on his love-based system. And his boundaries are love-based. His commandments are love-based. It's a whole different way of thinking and acting. If you were in chair 1 all the time, man, in this book, Leif Hetland talks about experiences where he just walks into places in the Middle East, walks into a store and has the owner ask him to come to the back of the store. Later on, he went in earlier in the day and felt, a little bit hesitant because people were looking at him weird. And he dropped off his jewelry to be worked on or whatever, left and came back to pick it up later. And the owner asked to see him because earlier during the day, he had this encounter with something he didn't understand that came into his office in the back of and so he goes to the people in the office and says, "Hey, what happened around this time? Who came in here?" And they told him there's this blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy from wherever, from Europe. He said, when he comes back, I want to see him. And so apparently, just by coming into that space, this person, Leif Hetland, was an atmosphere changer. And God's love, like this guy experienced an encounter with God's love in his office that he didn't know what to do with at all. And so from there, it started a relationship, And that's the kind of power. That's the kind of power that God's love can have. That's what Jesus would like us to be doing all the time. And so if we can follow boundaries in the right way, then it leads us into this destiny of culture changing, culture shaking, shifting the world, building heaven on earth, and not just trying to escape this earth to get to heaven. It's a whole different way. So I think that is really important. Christlike boundaries can lead us into a chair 1 relationship with God, a habitation relationship. And that's what we need to try to get to. And so when we talk about boundaries, that's the mentality I'm having with this, I'm not trying to bring up shame and guilt and fear and all that kind of stuff. It might bring up those things for you, but that's not the intent, because God, his way, his boundaries are fully love-based, just like you said. But I think sometimes we're struggling to believe that. And the only way you get anything from heaven, from God, from the kingdom, is by receiving it. You have to receive it. And we have this mentality we have to earn everything. But the only way you get anything is by receiving it from God. It's a new way of thinking. So his boundaries are, like, to your point, way more loving, way more grace-filled than we would like to allow ourselves to believe sometimes. So I think that's an important thing. So all of that, I think, to say Christ-like boundaries obviously relates to our relationship with God. So let's talk about other relationships real quick then. I think if we don't have that circle one relationship with God, circle two with ourselves, if we're not working on that first and setting the proper boundaries there and following his boundaries for life and setting boundaries for ourselves, then we're going to struggle in those other relationship circles. And it's most often struggles in those other relationship circles and a disproportionate focus in those relationship circles that creates problems with our relationship with God. Like you said earlier, like we're no longer treating image bearers, ourselves included, with the respect that image bearers deserve, and we're not treating the original image the way that he deserves to be treated. So getting these relationships aligned is all about boundaries. So can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah.
Sorry, I just kind of went off there. We good?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure.
I was trying to give you space.
Thanks. Okay. So, few things on this. If you don't have proper boundaries in your human relationships, then resentment and burnout can happen. People pleasing, identity loss. I'm just going off a list. Codependency is a huge one that happens. Chronic guilt or anxiety, toxic or abusive relationships. Sometimes you have no time or energy for your own goals. There's a breakdown of honest communication between people and things slow down, and emotional dysregulation happens. And sometimes you just have this constant blanket of irritation and agitation. You can't quite put your finger on it. And a lot of that has to do with not having proper boundaries. You're being trespassed, or you're allowing yourself to be trespassed. So you're not fully loving yourself because you don't have proper boundaries for your life. You're allowing other people too much access, or other things too much access. There's a really balanced ecology that has to happen for you to have like really maximal happiness. And when you start tipping the scales toward one relationship circle over another, or if you're working way too much, working 60, 70 hours a week, that can tax other areas of your life because you don't have a great boundary on that part of your life. So those are some of the problems. So how do we set proper boundaries and overcome some of those problems?
Oh, well, I think proper boundaries, healthy boundaries in all areas of life kind of originate with those proper relational alignment circles that we always talk about. Because our first responsibility in every arena is to the original image, to God.
Yeah.
If we put him where he's supposed to go, if all things exist the way they are meant to, if all things are aligned where they should be, then we end up with harmony, which is many moving parts in the same song. And that takes composition. Composition takes time. So I think sometimes we think, well, I need to set my boundaries and they need to be concrete and they need to be whatever, and that's just not how boundaries work, because that's not how relationships work. Right. So I think that boundaries change over the course and the progression of a relationship, and they should. And any healthy relationship, they should.
Okay.
Right. Your boundaries that you have for our 3-year-old son will change over time. Yes. They already have.
Right.
Right. Yeah. There were certain things that you would not let him do when he was one, but now we trust him to do
Yeah.
because he has practiced doing them, right? So there's composition there. There's the composing of those boundaries and how it progresses over time.
Yes.
And there's practice, because practice gives you comfortability, and comfortability means that the boundaries can flex a little bit. Doesn't mean that they go away or that they change completely, but I think one thing that we need to understand about boundaries is that they shouldn't be static.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be completely immovable and unchangeable.
Mm.
They need to be malleable,
Yes.
because we should be malleable. And if we're malleable, if we are constantly being refined in the hands of the Lord and in his presence, then our boundaries should be flexing and morphing and being molded along with us.
Yeah.
Because maybe you didn't have conviction about doing something
Right.
a year ago when your relationship wasn't as close or as intimate with the Lord as it is now. And now you feel horrible if you were to do the same thing.
Right.
That means the boundary needs to change. It needs to shift.
It needs to shift with your knowledge.
Right.
With your accountability.
Yeah. So I think that there are areas, like different areas of life, that we need to set boundaries in all of our relationships. There's time boundaries, physical boundaries, mental boundaries,
money boundaries.
Yeah, for sure. That's a big one. Money boundaries. And just even conversational boundaries. Like, there are things that I'm not going to talk about. We're not going to discuss this,
Right.
because it doesn't help me honor the original image bearer, you or me. You know what I mean? Like, there's certain ways that we aren't going to speak to each other. We have boundaries in that regard in our relationship that we have discussed. We're not going to raise our voice at each other. What's the point of that?
Yeah.
You know, we're not going to talk down to each other. There's just certain things that we're not going to do because of the depth of our relationship. And as our relationship has progressed over the years, those boundaries have changed, but they've always been there.
Yeah.
Time boundaries, right? Date night is a time boundary. Nothing is going to transgress that unless we have a discussion about it.
Yeah.
It's not static because it doesn't always happen on Friday.
Yeah.
Right? That's when it happens most of the time. But sometimes I have a gig, or you have a meeting, or we have something that we have to do together, or there's some kind of family thing, like family reunion happens over a weekend. Obviously, we're not going to stop everything in the family reunion because date night is static. No, we will do date night on Wednesday, or, you know what I mean? Like, these things shift and change, and they should be allowed to.
It's good.
It's easier to move a white picket fence than it is to move the walls of Jericho.
Yes.
For the Lord to move the walls of Jericho, he needed faith and marching and music and ram's horns and all of these things to get rid of the walls of Jericho.
Yeah.
You could just pick up a white picket fence and move it.
Yeah.
You know?
You want to have a flexible system.
Yeah.
An organism versus an organization, a rigid organization.
Love that.
Yeah. Vine, being connected to the vine. I'm the vine, you're the branches. Being a branch connected to the vine that can bear fruit. That vine moves. You can move with the vine. Yeah. So that's good. So what I'm getting from what you're saying is, like, okay, like blank slate human, you know? And if you want to, like, reset, this is how you would do it. First, set the boundary in your relationship with God.
Oh, yeah.
Next, so that's love God.
Love God.
Next, set the relationship in your boundary with yourself, making sure you love yourself. So that's circle 2, but that's the love self part. Then circle 3 is set the proper boundaries in all of your relationships with your neighbor. And that's love your neighbor. So that aligns with those commandments from Matthew 22. It's that neighbor circle that has multiple circles, right? Circle 1 and 2 is easy, God, you. But then you start getting into these other circles. We call circle the next circle after yourself is circle 2.5. That's the circle for you and your spouse.
Yeah.
And then after that, circle 3 is that inner circle of people that you really let in. Circle 4 is the chosen, the few, the people we do life with. Sometimes family members are not part of that inner circle. They're not 3, but they're part of 4.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the essential relationships: God, self, spouse, chosen few, the few. And then the next circles out are the urgent relationships. The mandatory relationships are circle 5, like professional obligations, stuff like that. And circle 6 is like peripheral relationships, just the types where you keep them at distance for different reasons. They caused pain in the past, and would do so again if you give them the opportunity. And then circle 7 are just the world at large, right? And at certain times, you might be called to bring a certain person in a season into into the few, into circle 4 for a second, but then let them go. But they're not going to be in circle 4 the rest of your life. We're called to love our neighbor as ourselves. So I don't want people to get twisted. Like, we're supposed to love everybody, obviously, but if everybody kind of followed this system, then everybody would be taken care of. It's imbalances in other people's relationship circles that cause problems, because sometimes their imbalance bleeds into your life,
Right.
and they're requiring you to fill a void that is actually meant to be filled by somebody else or God, that they're not allowing to be filled there. So now they're pulling on you because their relationship circles are out of order. All right. But if you were starting from scratch, you would set boundaries in each of these circles. And you would look in each of these circles, and when you're experiencing dysregulation or problems or burnout or any of those issues, you look to your relationship circles and say, okay, where are my boundaries off? What am I not doing, or what am I doing? What am I allowing in those areas? So I think there's a helpful framework. Christ-like boundaries and the relationship circles kind of gives us a framework for creating the proper boundaries in a kingdom way that would, I think, lead to some pretty darn good success. So with that, I feel a lot more confident in sharing some of the great quotes, because I think they now apply better.
Yeah.
Because for me just to say, like, one of the great ones from Henry Cloud is, no is a complete sentence.
Love that.
Love that. Absolutely. But you have to apply that in a Christ-like way. Because sometimes yes is a complete sentence, and you need to be able to, like you said, be malleable. And sometimes our no, we just take it to to misuse. As always, the answer to misuse is not disuse, but proper use.
Yeah.
So finding proper use of no is a complete sentence within this framework of Christ-like boundaries and relationship circles. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
There are times I need it.
It really comes down to whether or not you trust God to protect you with his boundaries, or if you don't trust God and trust you to protect yourself.
Right.
Right? If you protect yourself, you need the walls of Jericho with the armed guards and the crossbow.
Right.
And the moat with the alligators and the drawbridge and the chain link fence with barbed wire and all the protection measures. You need that for yourself if you are protecting yourself. But if you are not engaged in protecting yourself, if you have turned that over to the one who can do it without unhealthy, toxic boundaries, if you can trust him to do it spiritually first, then you don't need to engage in locking yourself in a prison to feel safe. If you let him do it, then all these things will find their proper place.
Yeah.
It really is delight thyself also in the Lord. Put him first. Put him first. Right? It's so many different, I have so many different verses like flowing through my head right now. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust. What is a trust really? It's a place of safety. That's where we put our money. We want to keep it safe until a certain time. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding.
Yes.
In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your path. Like, he will make sure everything flows the way it's supposed to.
Yes.
If you trust him. That's one of the things that the Lord told me a couple of years ago, he's like, you got to stop protecting yourself. Stop trying to protect yourself. You're doing it wrong. It's not even your job.
Yeah.
The boundaries, I'm an expert. It's my job.
Yeah.
Let me do it.
Yeah.
And when we do, we find that, yeah, there are some things that get past that we wouldn't have let past.
Yeah.
Because let's be real.
Right.
Like,
Yep.
had I been Jesus, Judas would not have gotten as far as he got.
Right.
Right?
You'd have blocked him before he even got in the crew.
Before he got in the crew. He would not have been follow me. No.
Yeah.
Because I already see what you on. There's no way he didn't see who he chose Judas for the specific purpose that and I know that's really hard for me to think about. Like, wow, because this guy, son of perdition, right? Like, it would have been better for him if he had never been born.
Sheesh.
For Jesus to say that about somebody he chose, but also call him his friend. Like, his boundaries is a little different than what mine would have been.
Right.
But they brought about the purpose
Yes.
of the kingdom. And if we trust him to erect the right boundaries around us, then there will be things that get through that we would have filtered.
Wow. Yes.
And we need to acknowledge that, because if we don't, I think we will forfeit what we can learn from having Christ-like boundaries, because Christ-like boundaries mean that Judas might be allowed to kiss you, because it will bring about the kingdom.
Boom.
In your life.
Yeah.
It might mean Judas is allowed in the inner circle, because without him, the seed that you are would never fall to the ground and die. And your life will never bear the fruit that it's meant to.
Wow.
And if we just have healthy boundaries, we might not experience the holiness that comes from Christ-like boundaries. Because health in a plant requires death first. It doesn't become a plant without dying.
Dang.
And this is something I had to come to terms with myself, because the Lord kept telling me, you can't protect yourself. You're imprisoning yourself when I'm trying to set you free. That might mean that things get in that you would never let in yourself.
That's right. That
doesn't mean that I'm not sovereign. That doesn't mean that I'm not in control. That doesn't mean that I am not fully aware of who you really are and what we need to do to get back to manufacturer's specifications. Because who you've become is not worth protecting.
Oh.
That'll sabotage you every time. That'll take you down a road that you ain't supposed to be going down. A road I did not ordain for you. But if you let me do what I want to do, the boundaries I set up will protect who you really are. Not who you've become. Two different things. And I'm just telling you.
You got it.
I'm just telling you what he's told me. Like, you can't protect yourself and be effective in the kingdom. It's not your job. It is the job of the king to protect his dominion.
Yeah.
And if you are a citizen of the king's dominion, then you are his dominion. And if you are his dominion, it is his sword that should be wielded against your enemies. Not your little switchblade. Not your little Swiss Army knife.
Wow.
So I think that's something that we really need to acknowledge when it comes to Christ-like boundaries. Christ-like boundaries means that there are certain things that you would filter out.
Yes.
That he's going to let through. because you're in the business of protecting who you've become. And he's in the business of protecting who you really are.
Yep.
And we cannot convolute the two because
Yeah.
they are two different things.
Yeah. It is the difference between having the mind of Christ and the mind of Mina. We want them to be the same thing, but this is bringing it all the way back to the beginning, this kingdom and love thing. Like at the end of the day, we need to be willing to surrender to his way, to his love, to his love, to surrendering to his way of thinking and of doing things, his boundaries. So yes, so there are things. That's one of the great ways you can know if it's from God is if it's counterintuitive. You know,
I hate that, but it's true. Like so many times I'm like, well, this doesn't seem like something God would do. And then I go check with him and he's like,
right.
Which God is it the God of your own making or?
Right. And so you go check yourself and say, okay, because the fruit of surrendering is that your will and your mind and who you are gradually becomes more like his. That's the fruit of it. And then that's the greatest fruit that there is who you become and the relationship you develop with him and the oneness you achieve with him. The habitation relationship. And so that's chair one, chair two stuff as well.
Yeah.
Like we're wanting to be in chair one all the time. But often like when it feels counterintuitive, I got to check myself. I'm like, oh, am I operating from chair two? Self-preservation, fear, kingdom of self. Really, at the end of the day, and I can start to tell how I'm progressing toward becoming more Christ-like and becoming more one with him by how cheerfully I'm willing to follow his will. How natural it feels to follow his will. How intuitive it feels to follow his will, because it no longer feels counterintuitive because my will is becoming his will. And then right when I feel like I've got it right, he then said, okay, let's go to a new level. And I repeat the same thing where what was just became intuitive is now counterintuitive again. I'm like, oh, come on, Lord. Yeah. But that's the upward spiral. So that was great. What you said about Christ-like boundaries. I think we can hang our hat on Christ-like boundaries. And that, again, is not static. It is based in his word and his words to you. You have to have a living, breathing relationship with him. And as you develop that, he's going to teach you how to apply his boundaries in your situation. Yeah. Not what would Jesus do 2,000 years ago, but what would Jesus do if he were me today? And the Lord will help illuminate the power of his word that is eternal from scripture into your situation today and help you understand how to apply his Christ-like boundaries in your situation. Yeah. And that's my big takeaway from all this. And I know that that's what I need to exercise, because there are certain things in my life right now that are out of balance because I am having a hard time saying no. Because I don't want to hurt people, or have shame or guilt or anxiety about it, right. Or somebody else is imbalance in their lack of boundaries is infringing on my boundaries, right. And I'm allowing this to happen. Yeah. So I'm not truly loving God, myself, and others. Yeah. And it's grating on me.
Yeah. If you're not allowing, like if you're transgressing, if you're sinning against God to make other people comfortable.
Dang.
That's not okay.
Yeah.
That's not Christ-like. Because one thing Jesus was not going to do was sin against heaven to make anybody comfortable. And we could see it. If we're going to be like Christ-like, if we're going to be like Christ, if we're going to be Christ-like, and we're going to have Christ-like boundaries, witness the way that he operated when erecting boundaries. When it came to them Pharisees, baby, those were the people that anybody else would have been aiming to keep comfortable. But he was not about that life. He was not playing them games with them. His first responsibility was to the original image bearer. His first responsibility was to heaven. And if what he had to do as a directive from heaven made those people uncomfortable, so be it.
Yeah.
And that's really how we have to operate. Especially when like you're in business. Like you're in operating the business world all the time.
Mm-hmm.
No is a complete sentence
Yeah.
is so applicable to the work that you have to do. Because if you don't say no in the right spaces and in the right times when it's absolutely necessary, what you end up doing is prolonging and wasting everybody else's time and yours.
Mm-hmm.
When what you really know you want to say is no.
Mm-hmm.
You end up drawing out the situation.
Boom. Yeah. Yeah.
Because you didn't just say what you meant.
That's a fact.
You know what I mean? And I've seen that happen
Yeah.
a lot. Just in my own life. Like instead of saying no, saying like maybe, or when I know I meant no. No was what was in my mind.
Mm.
And it wasn't malicious.
Right.
But I saw in that moment that that person's lack of boundaries was infringing on mine. And instead of me saying something to that effect, I just kind of was like, well, I can deal with it.
Yeah.
Or I can handle it. I can bear it. Because we're supposed to bear one another's burdens. Right? But I think it's Galatians. Galatians 6:5 says, for each one shall bear his own load.
Mm-hmm.
And those two ideas don't have to be contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
What needs to be applied is context.
Yeah.
Because when you have a directive from the Lord, that's the load you're supposed to bear on your own.
Right.
You know? And I think burdens and load are probably two different things.
Yeah.
When we get into the language.
Yeah. Right.
And so, yeah, I think applying Christ-like boundaries, especially in something like business, I feel like no is a complete sentence is real helpful.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
And you don't even have to say just no. Like you can say no with a qualifier. No, because blah, blah, blah. I mean, not that you owe anyone an explanation, but if you think that'll cushion the blow, that's fine. If the blow needs to happen, it needs to happen.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I'm just grateful. I feel like we could have flipped this conversation. It would not have been as effective.
No, I feel like I thought we were going to talk about relationships, like dating.
Yeah.
But when you think about the application of Christ-like boundaries, I feel like it just goes across the board. Because if you are honoring God first, if you're sitting in chair one with him, like you're supposed to be, then literally everything else flows from that. If you're in a dating relationship, then understanding how love and kingdom work together, how love has boundaries inherent in the word. Right? Like, even if we think of the word agape and we say love feast. Well, a love feast is a feast. You think about a feast, the feast has dishes. What are dishes? Boundaries for the food.
For the food, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's places where everything goes. So even if there's this overabundance of it, there's still boundaries for what it is and what it isn't. If we're talking about a feast, then it's not a charcuterie board.
Right.
Right? It's dishes upon dishes overflowing with good food. That's a feast. It's not a little girl dinner over on the side. Those are boundaries. So the exercising of Christ-like boundaries starts first with the chair that we give to God. And then the seat we take in his lap in that chair.
Yep.
If we say nothing else can occupy this space but him, that is the first boundary and the most important boundary that we need to set.
Yeah.
If we set that boundary that says that he is the first and original image to whom I owe allegiance, everything else is going to take its proper place.
Mhm.
And you will feel what boundaries you need to set in a dating relationship, in the relationship with your parents, in a business relationship, because you have already allowed your relationship with God to occupy the proper boundaries.
Mhm.
Which I love that, because the boundaries that God, the relationship we have with God occupies, really don't have any limits. It's like everything.
Mm. Right. Right. Yeah. And I'll just add one more thing onto that, and then we'll start clearing the runway for a landing. I think one way that you can know what a person truly values and where they've really set their boundaries is by looking at their wallet and their calendar. If you have put God in circle one, in chair one, he's on the throne, your time should look different. And your wallet should look different.
That one's rough.
Okay. So where are you spending your time and where are you spending your money? Do an evaluation of that, especially your time. Look at the phone.
Yeah, it'll tell you how long you've been on there today, what time you spent on which apps. They have tracking now. You can look and find out.
And that most of the time, what you're doing on your phone, in social media land especially, has nothing to do with circle 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's circle 5 and 6. And we spend more time there than we spend in circle 1 with God. And that is where a lot of our problems happen. So look at your wallet, look at your calendar. Okay. All right.
Do you want to read your quotes?
Yes. Okay, so I have a list from Dr. Henry Cloud, who wrote the incredible book Boundaries: When to Say Yes, How to Say No to Take Control of Your Life. Changed my life about 10 years ago, and I would highly recommend it. So here's a small list from Dr. Henry Cloud. Hopefully you get something out of this. You get what you tolerate. No is a complete sentence. People who set boundaries are not selfish. They are self-aware. We change our behavior when the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of changing. When we accept others' boundaries, we show them the same respect we want for our own. We can't manipulate people into swallowing our boundaries by sugarcoating them. Boundaries are a litmus test for the quality of our relationships. We can't grow or be emotionally healthy if we're constantly rescuing others from their responsibilities. And love can't exist without freedom, and boundaries keep love free. Good stuff.
I love that last one. Say that again.
Love can't exist without freedom, and boundaries keep love free.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. And this is why we translate love as charity. Free love.
Yeah.
It's not without its boundaries.
Yeah.
And that is how the world defines it. Right. I should be able to treat you like a doormat and you still love me. Yeah. And Christ-like boundaries emanate from a relationship with Christ.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Love that.
I have another list as well.
Oh.
From another Henry. This Henry is our friend, Henry Amar.
Henry Amar.
We love Henry. And
Shout out to Henry.
Yes. He gave a great TED Talk that we'll put in the description. You can check the link. He said a few things about boundaries, about love-based boundaries that I thought were great. He said, what if boundaries weren't just a yes or a no, but a question of how much? The same walls that keep pain out also keep love out. He said, you have to feel safe before you can fully give or receive love. Fear-based boundaries are built in survival mode. They keep us stuck in defense, not love. Boundaries aren't walls, they're invitations. Invitations to honor values, build trust, and grow together.
White picket fence.
You don't have to live in reaction. You can live in creation, choosing the relationships and rhythms that support your holiness and your holiness.
Say that one again.
You don't have to live in reaction. You can live in creation, choosing the relationships and rhythms that support your wholeness. And then your proximity determines your access. Not everyone should have front row seats to your life. So, Henry, that's some good stuff there, brother. Two Henrys helped us out a little bit there. But again, I feel like all of those things now within this context of Christ-like boundaries really gives me more tools, because I loved what Henry said, both Henrys. And now I feel, after this talk today, I feel more equipped to take what they said and apply it to my life within Christ-like boundaries and these relationship circles. And really, when is no a complete sentence for me? And how does that look for me? Lord, how do I need to apply that? Because I believe it, I love it, but I struggle sometimes with the application of it. And the Lord needs me to understand how He wants me to use it, how I can apply that to a Christ-like boundary.
Maybe you can get with the Lord and have Him help you script some good ways to say no.
100%.
So that when you are faced with the necessity of applying that no as a complete sentence, you can already have a script prepared for what to say. And it doesn't need to be the same thing every time, but maybe like some creative ways to communicate what it is that you're trying to say, while also keeping love at the forefront and being as Christ-like as you can be.
Yeah. Back to the training, like, take this seriously. I need to take this seriously. I'm living in reaction, not creation sometimes, because it takes time. It takes time to get with the Lord and script out responses. But if you've done it, it becomes a tool in your toolkit, and I can use that more often, and it'll ultimately save a lot of time. It goes back to, last thing I'll say, I promise. In this Leif Hetland book, Call to Reign, he had this experience with God where God told him to take the first 6 weeks of the year off, sabbatical, rearrange your schedule, no work. He's like, okay. And so during one of those days where he was off, he had this experience with the Lord, a conversation with the Lord, and the Lord showed him a big tree and then showed him an axe. And he said, how long do you think it would take you to chop down that tree? And Leif told the Lord, I think about 10 hours. And the Lord said, okay, what if you spent 2 hours sharpening the axe? He said, oh, I think I could probably chop it down in about 2 hours. It's like, okay, 4 hours versus 10 hours. So sometimes it is worth the investment into training and getting with the Lord, putting ourselves in our relationship with Him first, sharpening that axe so that when we go back to our work, something that would have taken a long time now takes a lot less time. So like what you're saying, I'm preaching to myself and saying, okay, if I keep on avoiding the no, I'm going to spend 10 hours on this tree. But if I get with the Lord and He teaches me how to say no, then I can maybe have a couple conversations that would then maybe get rid of the tree altogether. So anyway.
This brings me back to our conversation that we had in the car coming back from one of my away gigs. You remember that? We were talking about people pleasing, basically, and how, like, it's a snare, how it's a hook in your nose to change your direction to what that person wants or what you think is going to please them versus, what will please God. And I think getting with the author and the finisher and creating a script that you can add to your toolkit would be a 2-hour sharpening of the axe and help you chop down trees a lot quicker.
Amen. Well, this episode was for me. Thank you
Well,
and thank you for joining the therapy session with
oh
Bryden.
my gosh.
No, the conclusions we came to, I think, were really valuable.
Yeah, I love that. Even just that small pivot of Christ-like boundaries versus toxic or even healthy boundaries.
Or even righteous boundaries.
Or even righteous, because not everyone's definition of righteousness is actually what righteousness is.
Mhm.
And we can all agree that Christ is the picture of righteousness.
Yeah.
And so if we look at boundaries through that lens, I think what we're going to see is a lot clearer and more concise than we would see it through any other lens. So that's great. Thanks, babe. You're brilliant. I love talking to you.
Talking to you, babe.
Thank you to everybody who's sitting here watching. Thank you so much for rocking with us. We're so grateful for our audience. You guys are amazing. We just want to remind you, like, comment, subscribe, share. Please come on the cruise with us. We would love that. And we know that there are some of you who really, really wait for this section of the pod. I mean, literally every episode, somebody's commenting on this portion of the podcast. So we don't want to leave you guys hanging. We want to leave you with a smile on your face. As always, what do we have for the people, babe?
Well, we've been speaking about boundaries. So I wanted to go across national boundaries all the way to Russia on this one.
Okay. I apologize to Russia in advance.
No, I don't think there's any reason to apologize. No. What did the Russian policeman say to his belly button?
I have no idea.
You're under a vest.
You're under a vest.
Under a vest.
Is that how Russians speak English?
No, I don't know. I Googled it, okay?
You're under a vest.
You're under a vest. Get it?
Yeah,
the belly button's
under a vest. Yes, I get it.
All right. We love y'all. That was...
All right. Yikes. Maybe catch us next time. We love y'all. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
It's better with us too.